Water and war. How desalination plants shape security in the Middle East. Water scarcity has always been one of the defining challenges of the Middle East. Much of the region consists of desert landscape with extremely limited rainfall and very few permanent rivers. Unlike regions such as South Asia, Europe, and or North America, many Middle Eastern countries simply do not have enough natural fresh water sources to support their growing population. To solve this problem, many governments across the region turn to an engineering solution, desalination. Desalination is the process of removing salt from seawater to produce fresh drinking water. Today, desalination plants located along the coast of Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean supply drinking water to tens of millions of people. However, the technological solution has also created a new strategic vulnerability. Some military analysts now argue that desalination plants could become among the most important targets in future Middle Eastern conflicts. To understand why, we must first examine how important desalination has become in the region. The Middle East and water security. The Middle East is one of the driest regions on earth. Many countries receive very little rainfall each year. Groundwater reserves have also been declining due to heavy use. As population grew rapidly during the 20th century, governments faced increasing pressure to secure reliable water supplies. Cities such as Riyadh, Dubai, Kuwait, and Tel Aviv required enormous volumes of fresh water every day. Desalination technology offered a solution. By converting seawater into fresh water, countries located near coastlines could overcome their natural water shortages. Over the past few decades, the Middle East has become the global center of desalination technology. Countries most dependent on desalination. Several Middle Eastern countries now rely heavily on desalination water. The largest producer of desalinated water in the world is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia operates dozens of desalination plants along both the Red Sea and Persian Gulf. Another important desalination user in the United Arab Emirates. Another major desalination user is the United Arab Emirates, where cities such as Dubai and Abu Dhabi obtain most of their drinking water from desalination. Other Gulf countries with very high dependence include Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain. Meanwhile, Israel has developed some of the most efficient desalination systems in the world. Today, desalination provides around 70% of Israel's drinking water. In some Gulf nations, desalination supplies up to 90% of domestic water needs. Major desalination plants in the Middle East. The Middle East contains several of the largest desalination plants ever built. One of the most significant is the Ras Al Khair desalination plant. This massive facility produces roughly 1 million cubic meters of fresh water per day, making it one of the largest desalination plants in the world. Another important facility is Jebel Ali Desalination Complex. This complex supplies drinking water to millions of residents in Dubai and is integrated with large power generation facilities. Israel operates several major plants along the Mediterranean coast. These include Sorek Desalination Plant, Ashkelon Desalination Plant, Hadira Desalination Plant. These facilities together produce most of the Israel's domestic drinking water. Across the Middle East, there are now more than 100 major desalination plants, along with many smaller facilities. These plants are usually located along the coastlines where seawater can be easily pumped into treatment systems. Why desalination plants could become a strategic target? Because desalination plants are so important for daily life, they have also become critical infrastructure. Military analysts point out several reasons why these facilities could become strategic targets during conflicts. First, desalination plants supply water to major urban populations. If one large facility were destroyed, cities could face severe water shortages. In some Gulf countries, urban water reserves would last only a few days without desalination. Second, desalination plants are usually located on a coastline. Three, these locations make them potentially vulnerable to attack by missiles, drones, or naval forces. Third, desalination plants require huge amount of electricity. If power grids or energy supplies were disrupted, desalination systems could stop operating. Because of these factors, desalination infrastructure has become closely linked with national security. How governments protect desalination infrastructure? Re- Recognizing this vulnerability, governments in the region have taken steps to protect desalination plants. These protections include air defense systems around key infrastructure, naval patrols near coastal facilities, security forces guarding industrial installations, redundant systems allowing water supply to continue if one plant stops working. Some countries also maintain emergency storage systems that can supply cities for short periods during crisis. Would the entire Middle East lose water if one plant were destroyed? Despite these concerns, it is important to understand that the Middle East does not rely on a single desalination plant. Instead, the region has many plants distributed across multiple countries. If one plant were damaged, the impact would mainly affect the local city or country. Other countries would continue operating their own desalination facilities. However, if multiple plants across the region were disrupted simultaneously during a large conflict, the consequences could be much more serious. The future of water security in the Middle East. Looking ahead, desalination will likely become even more important in the Middle East. Climate change, population growth, and declining groundwater reserves are increasing pressure on water resources. Governments are therefore investing in new desalination technologies, including more energy efficient membrane systems and renewable energy powered desalination. At the same time, security planners increasingly recognize that water infrastructure must be protected just as carefully as oil facilities, ports, and power plants. Conclusion. Desalination technology has allowed Middle Eastern countries to overcome one of their most difficult natural challenges, the scarcity of fresh water. By turning seawater into drinking water, governments have enabled the growth of modern cities in an environment that would otherwise struggle to support large populations. Yet this success has also created new strategic considerations. Because desalination plants are essential for daily life, they have become critical infrastructure whose protection is vital for regional stability. In the complex geopolitics of the Middle East, water security is now inseparable from national security. So that's our topic about the water. and war, how desalination plants shape security in Middle East. Hope this narration was insightful about the topic. Thank you for tuning in with us. Have a great day.